Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod Hector, and I am joined by a special guest. He is one half of the wildly popular Dunker Spot podcast. NBA Twitter and now NBA Sky? That's the thing? Legend? Nekias Duncan, how are you, sir?
I am doing well, sir. How are you?
I cannot complain. Day before Thanksgiving. Look, life is good. Like, I'm healthy. Everybody's good. Like, I'm good. How about you?
Oh yeah, doing well, doing well. Ready to eat and see the family tomorrow. A whole lot of basketball to kind of absorb in.
Uh-huh.
Still doing a little bit of double league coverage at the moment. We're getting closer to expansion time,
That's
all
right.
that good stuff. So
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun, but can't complain.
No, listen, we could be doing other things for a living that are way more stressful and not as fun. So we're all good. We're going to get into something about the W in a second, but I actually wanted to ask you this question to start. Are you, like everybody else, still reeling off of the Kendrick Lamar surprise album release?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, shout out to my guy Steve, half of the podcast. He starts the intro or finishes his intro yelling Dunker in mustard voice, and I'm just like, what is happening right now? And I'm just supposed to talk about Jason Tatum screens right after that. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, but shout out my guy. The album itself was great. Like, I've been playing it while I'm like watching film, or when I hop on College Football 25, I just have it going to kind of lock in and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really good stuff.
You know, this Kendrick Drake thing has really, like, because for me, it sort of, I didn't realize how many people took it as such an affront that Drake was popular in the space of hip hop. Like, I was like, why does it bother you people so much? Like, but like, not even bother, like more so, guys, like offends people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, what is the problem? Like, you don't like this shit, just don't listen to it. Like, you know, it's a strange thing. And now with the lawsuits, I'm like, good God, this is like, so for all those people who hate Drake and love Kendrick, I mean, y'all are living on cloud nine right now. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a fun holiday weekend. Like, I guess it's someone that just kind of just takes in the music versus this is my favorite and I'm part of this army, et cetera, et cetera. It has kind of been surreal to see how it's played out. Kind of similar to you. Like, I understand not liking Drake based off of, you know, just general musical preference, or even if you don't like Kendrick, that's fine. But like, I just wasn't aware of the vitriol outside of the music. And like, you get this is what Drake does behind the scenes and yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, okay, well, this seems more understandable, but this is still a lot in short order. Like, the actual beef itself was, it got nasty very quickly. I was like, oh.
It's wild, man. Like, and then, you know, stan culture is a part of this too, right? I think about it with the NBA, and I'm like, okay, let's say I prefer Joel Embiid to Nikola Jokic. I'm not saying that's the case, but let's say I do. If Nikola Jokic, that doesn't, like, I'm not offended by that, right? I'm not like, oh my God, I'm like, oh, it's just a thing. Like, whatever. That guy won. All right, cool. Let's keep it moving. Like, strange business out there, people. Real strange.
Very much so. Very much so. I think in general, it would be cool if we could like have our preferences within reason, you know, obviously. But like, we could have our preferences, have our faves without it turning into what it turns into when it comes to music and sports in particular.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are some arenas to where like a difference of opinion is much more important. But within those two specifically, it's just like, hey, I don't like this artist. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to hop under their pro post and talk about how bad they are. Like, it just seems like a waste of time to me.
Thank you, Nekias. Like, all the energy, like, you know, hating requires a lot of energy, man.
It does. You can just spend that energy like enjoying your own fave or finding other people that kind of vibe with your sensibilities to begin with. Like,
I knew we would vibe. See, this is wonderful.
Easy peasy.
All right, man. Before we copped on, a clip went out on Twitter from the NBA Central account from Bill Simmons of The Ringer, who said that Caitlin Clark is more popular than any NBA superstar under the age of 30. And I was like, whoa, it's just like, you know, obviously anything with Caitlin Clark will like make your head kind of like, oh, okay, what's happening here? Simmons says it, so it's going to go out, it's going to get out there and probably, you know, go viral. And he also said, I don't think that's a debate. What I will not, and the reason I want to ask you about it is because obviously you cover the W extensively. What I will not debate is clearly she has a level of magnetism and star power, right? I saw all the numbers of games that she played in, what they did, all that. I mean, people say numbers lie. Well, those numbers don't lie, right? They are what they are. You can litigate whether you like her as a player. That I don't care about any of that. My point is like, okay, this is someone who attracts people to come to television to watch women's professional basketball. Okay. Now, the statement that she is wildly more popular or bigger than any NBA star under the age of 30, I was like, whoa. And if that is true, that is amazing for the W.
It should be. Like, I just, because you tossed it to me, it's like, that's interesting. Let me find the full clip and watch it myself. And I watch and it's like, okay, like this isn't a crazy take. And then my mind immediately went to, okay, who's under 30? Like, obviously that removes LeBron, that removes Steph, that removes KD. And like those will be the obvious names if you were just making she's bigger than any NBA star.
Right.
And I was like, is she more popular than Wemby? Like maybe, I'm just like, maybe stateside she is.
Yeah.
Like you
but
want you to
globally,
zoom it
probably
out.
not. Right.
Yeah, globally probably not. But even then, like women's basketball obviously growing a ton in the States over the past few years. But you look at some of these draft prospects that are coming in from overseas stuff, like the women's game is strong. Like
for sure.
So many W stars play overseas anyway. So like even with that, it's like,
yeah.
What does it's interesting? I was like,
is she bigger than Devin Booker?
Yeah, she's bigger than Book. All due respect to Book, but like,
it's just is what it is. Giannis under 30?
Giannis, I think 29. I think turning 30 soon, but like
she bigger than Giannis? She might be to the casual person on the street. Caitlin Clark, you know her? Giannis Antetokounmpo. Who? I'm not saying that's true. I'm just like, I wonder.
It's like the international guys pop for me first. Like, Wemby, as he's like the youngest starter we have. Like Luka's 25, 26.
Right.
Like I think she's probably bigger than Shea.
Oh, for sure. And no disrespect to Shea, she just is.
Yeah, which Shea's MVP caliber, like one of my favorite players in the league. So it's like, that kind of want him to get more love. But like in general, like like he's probably got more than Shea. Like Jokic would probably be the interesting one for me.
Yeah. I mean, Jokic is a 3-time MVP, and he's probably the most unknowable superstar we have in the league, right? Besides his horses. We know that he loves his horses and that. But what does the casual observer know about Nikola Jokic?
Yeah. So that's where it's like, it wouldn't surprise me if she's bigger than Jokic in the States.
Yeah.
Or just bigger than Jokic, period.
Yeah.
Which says nothing about the actual merits. I mean,
correct.
Jokic already building like a top 10 of all time case.
Funny that you say that. I was talking to David about this on a show last week. Is he already top 10? No, and it's like, look, it's your opinion. It's not like, like I just said, it's whatever you think, man.
Yeah, like I guess this is my thing. Like I've been saying for like 3 or 4 years now that I need to redo my top 10 list. Is like when I was younger, like I'm 80 years old, something like that. But like when I was younger, I would spend so much time trying to parse through. All right, MJ, Kareem, what do we do with Russell versus Wilt, and yada yada. And it's like, all right, cool. 8 through 10 is gonna be like Kobe, Duncan, Hakeem in some order, whatever. And like now it's just like, well, LeBron is just soundly top 5.
I mean, that's not even like,
you know what I'm saying? Like just since the last time I like seriously thought about it, I was like, okay, well, LeBron's like obviously top 5 now. We then had the Steph run.
Ooh,
and it's
Steph
like,
run.
And it's just like, okay, well, I know where his peak is. Like, how do I feel about these injuries, et cetera, et cetera? Like, how does that factor into some guys? Like,
what do you place a guy like Durant?
Yeah, like KD's gonna be interesting. And now you talk about Jokic, only, but like only one chip right now. But all these MVPs could have another one. He has, I think, solidified himself as like we'll be conservative, like one of the 5 or 6 best offensive players ever.
Oh,
already.
I mean,
and again, like you can make the argument for one, but I'm just saying, just to start the conversation, like he's done that, he's gonna keep going. Like he's having arguably his best season right now, and no telling how this is gonna end. So like, I don't know. Like I think at a minimum, if you're just saying, hey, pick the best 5 years of any player in the league, like I could probably get the Jokic top 10 pretty easily.
I would agree. I said, David,
wild to say.
No, it does, right? And it's because it's happening now. That's why our brains are like, wait, what? And when you make a new top 10, inevitably you have to move someone out, right? But that's just how it goes. Like over time, things change. That's why I always say it's hard to compare players across eras because, Kareem, I 85 is when I started watching basketball. I remember Kareem, not like peak Kareem, but that Kareem was still good when the Lakers won a title. The peak Kareem was a monster, like a monster. Now, different time, different NBA. I get all that, but still, like you cannot argue what that man's resume has on it. It is unreal.
It's sickening.
And I was thinking, I was like, wait, is Jokic already better than Duncan? And Duncan, for me, he was my favorite player of that generation. Like Kobe stands get mad at me. I'm like, guys, like if you're talking about impact on winning, it ain't close. Like it's Duncan. Like sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
Like what's the stat? Like he had, what was it, 2 seasons out that they didn't have a top 10 defense when he was there?
Correct.
Or something ridiculous. Like, and I'm not gonna slander Marcus Camby on this dear podcast. But it's like Duncan not having a defensive player of the year is freaking ridiculous.
Wild.
It is ridiculous that he doesn't have one, and he's just soundly one of the best defenders ever. But that's another podcast for another day.
Oh man, this is good. I love it. So let's get into some current NBA. I know you follow the Heat. Are you a Heat fan? Was it what I call you a Heat fan? A Miami Heat fan?
I think it's still fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, more natural, more national coverage and stuff.
Of course,
I can't dive into it, but yeah.
So this preseason, I thought it was interesting. Spo kind of had this scrum, I think, during a preseason game or practice, where someone had asked him about the team shooting more threes, and he poo-pooed it really well, like, "Oh, you guys are like whatever, like you're worried about." So he kind of like brushed us like, "There's nothing to see here." But I'm like, "But Spo, I think you're actually wrong because you're attempting 6 more threes per game than you did last season, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and they're making 2.5 more per game." I'm like, "Ooh." So as the kids say, the math is mathin' for the Heat right now from 3. But how are they generating their threes now, Nekias? What's changed offensively for them to generate these looks?
I think it's a couple of things. I think scheme-wise, the thing that stands out to me the most about Miami is they are a lot more intentional off the ball. And I think something that I've been clamoring for, some of my Heat friends have been clamoring for through years of the Spo era, is, hey, if we're running action on the left side of the floor, what are these guys on the right side of the floor doing? Are they just staying in space? They're just staying space, which, again, not inherently bad. You want to make the weak side make decisions, stuff like that. But it's just like, okay, where are the exchanges? Where are the pin-ins? Where are the flares? Like, you can do some of this stuff. And you think about how intricate Miami's half-court offense has been, like, post-LeBron era. It's not like Spo's averse to movement as a concept.
Right.
You know what I mean? They decided they were able to build out darn near top 10 offense the year they went to the finals in the bubble and stuff. So, like, it's not like he can't do it. But off the ball, it felt a little bit, felt more static than it could be. And I think this year there has been a real level of intention of, if something's happening on one side, we are going to make sure we have a guy screening on the other side. We're going to have a little bit of movement on the other side. I looked this up on Second Spectrum. Last year, it was about 8 pin-ins or flares per 100 possessions off the ball last year. That was the top 10 mark in the league. This year, they're darn near at 14 per 100 possession, which is easily the top mark in the league. You can imagine the Golden State Warriors are just up there and have pretty much every year in the Steve Kerr.
Right.
But like just seeing that statistical jump, it's like, okay, my eyes aren't lying to me. It does feel like they're doing a little bit more of this, and like that stuff helps.
Yeah.
And then when you just think about the individual player side, Tyler Hero, this is the first season of his career in which he is taking more pull-up threes than pull-up twos, and it's a career low on pull-up twos for him right now. And so, like, he's been more intentional. He's taking darn near 10 threes a game this year. So he's been more intentional about hunting out shots and hunting out those specific shots against drop coverage. Bam Adebayo, this is the first year of his career that he's averaging over 8 3-point attempts per season, per game, excuse me. And so, like, defenses aren't treating him like he's cat or anything like that right now. But, like, if you're just talking about the pure volume, Miami's taking more. Like, Bam is a literal big part of that. Like, this is the first full season or Terry Rozier, or at the very least it's supposed to be. He's been hurt. And he's working his way back into it. But like Terry Rozier is someone that is comfortable taking and making catch and shoot opportunities, playing off of the improved rim pressure of Tyler Hero. And he's also someone that can self-create. And we saw that, recording on a Wednesday, saw that last night against Milwaukee, where he darn near won that game for Miami because he's just boogieing off the mouth. Yep. And so when you have the individual growth, you have more guys being added into the fold. And then you have the scheme tweak offense, off the ball from Spo. I think that's where you're seeing the improved 3-point volume from Miami.
Do you think so? Like you said, you as a Heat fan, and other people have been clamoring for a while for them to do this. You mentioned the Golden State Warriors. I mean, to me, this idea of stacking multiple actions, the Indiana Pacers do this as well. It seems like that's the way you should be playing basketball. Look, I always say this, right? Like single high pick and roll, while with the best players in the world, hard to stop, right? But if that's all you're running, like okay,
we can see. It's like the old Kobe quote about James Harden, right? Where it's like, he's phenomenal, saying nothing about his skill, but like the entire defense can see you if you're at the top of the key and you're doing this action, no matter how good you are. And that at least gives you a chance to load up and do different things to help and stuff like that.
When you're doing multiple actions and things, that means defense has got to think, right? And it's like and half a hesitation or, wait, what are we doing here? Are we switching? Boom, right? Like you have an advantage on the backside. I'm just surprised more teams have not decided that, ball movement, player movement is the way to play better basketball. It's not rocket science in that way.
Yeah, like I think the ideal, like I think every coach, and you will hear them talk about like media day stuff like that. Like we want to move more, we want to play faster, we want to play with more tempo, etc. Like every coach has that, and then you look at the personnel, and like in a literal sense, like everyone can move their bodies a little bit more, but like there is a level of, I guess for lack of a better way to phrase it right now, there's a level of feel that you have to have. And like one of the louder examples, like think about Kelly Oubre when he went to Golden State versus when he left. And like watching him try to operate within all of the multiple cuts and the live reads, and hey, we're gonna pass it to you, step pass it to you, but this is because he's curling back to that right corner, and Kelly's attacking. It's like, wait, no, that's not what we do here, etc. Like there is an element of like feel and institutional knowledge that players have to be able to build a foundation of that kind of movement. Like again, to the like the off ball screening portion with Golden State, like that is, Steve Kerr's been there a decade, and so. Yeah, this is baked. This is what we do off the ball.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's easier to identify players that kind of fit the billing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Yep.
But like, I think that's why it's not easy to just everybody move, everybody pass, everybody screen. Because like, not everyone has played that way going up. Not everyone has been in systems like that. And, the regular season, as there's so much talk about what the regular season actually means, stuff like that. But in terms of building habits and things like that, the teams that have the foundation generally just have a leg up. And at a certain point, like if you already feel like you're one of the teams that's playing catch up, not even in a bad way, but if you're one of the teams that's playing catch up, at a certain point, you hit the 10, 12, 15 game mark. Okay, we just need to do what's going to get us wins. And if that just means we're going to spread pick and roll because our best player is a really good creator, then we just got to do that versus what my ideal basketball mind says to do.
And listen, that is a type of basketball that works. Like when you have a guy like James Harden or Luka Doncic running it, like you're gonna have it to listen. You can ride it all the way to the NBA Finals, as the Dallas Mavericks did, right? Like you can do that. It's just a wonder. I think as the players coming up now through AAU and different ranks, if more of that's implemented down there, does that change the way the players are already conditioned coming in, and we see more of that action happening as time goes on? It'll be interesting to watch over time. So one of the things at True Hoop that we're super obsessed with is depth. We're just big believers in that, right? Like, injuries are a thing that's just going to happen. Like, I don't know when, I don't know how, but you're going to have to deal with it. That's just the nature of the NBA. And to me, if you got a roster of 15 players, there shouldn't be dudes on there just filling it up who just, I'm never playing. Like, then why are they here? Like, to me, if I'm building a roster, there should be nobody on my bench that I would never play in a game. Or else, what are we doing? What are we actually doing here? We're wasting money. Like, I'm not doing my job. We're not developing talent. Like, this is all terrible. And I look at teams like, we mentioned the Warriors, the Cavs, the Thunder, or Rockets. Those are just a few teams that go at least 10 deep. In the Warriors' case, 13 deep. And by deep, I mean at least playing 11 minutes per game. Like, the Warriors have 13 players averaging 11 or more minutes a game. Nobody is averaging 30 minutes a game. Like, when you got old dudes like Steph and Draymond, huge, right? Like, that is big time for them. And it's big time for all those other guys getting minutes, because when there's the inevitable Draymond injury, Steph injury, or whatever, these guys aren't going to be like deer in the headlights, like, oh shit, what do I do? Like, we're fine. We know exactly what we're doing because we've been playing all year. And I wish other coaches, Tibbs, would, like, and we bang on Tibbs so bad all the time, but listen, he's the patron saint of this, right? Like, when these things happen and you are forced now, right? Now your hand is forced. You have no options. Well, now you're stuck with some guy who hasn't played since, January, and now you got to play him in the playoffs. Well, good luck, right? Like, I don't understand why more teams don't do that, and why they haven't caught on to this idea of, hey, the way the game is played now, with guys having to cover and run out to three and all the different things, we got to play a deeper roster. Why do you think teams don't play a deeper roster?
I think some of this, especially like you mentioned Tibbs, we can use him as a reference point. Like, as Tibbs has just been in the league for so long, and I think he has evolved in some ways. I don't want to take that completely away from him, but I do think you come up in an era to where, like, we need our starters, we need our top two reserves, and then we need two more. And this is kind of what we get. And when we get to the playoffs, like, we're playing 7 or 8. And this, we ride our stars, we ride our best lineups, and this is what it is. Like, I don't think that's inherently bad. But to your point, as the game has figuratively and literally expanded, and got spacier and faster, etc. Like just general wear and tear on the body, you kind of need more enforcement. Like that's been the most intriguing thing for me with Golden State in particular this year. Like it's not a new thing that Steve Kerr just play a bunch of dudes, but because they have become so much more aggressive defensively this year, we're extending the ball pressure, we're trapping a lot more than we did last year and stuff like that. If you're going to play that kind of aggressive style of defense, you need bodies that you can plug in so you're not overriding those guys. To your point, Steph, around 30 minutes or a little bit under, like Draymond is not logging big minutes, and Draymond, one of the best defenders of the generation, etc. Like you don't want to burn them out in November and December. But as far as, so I think there's a level of comfort in, okay, this is what we do. I want to trust, I'm riding with the guys that I trust, because ultimately when we get into the playoffs, I want to ride with the guys that I trust anyway. So I think there's that. And then the other thing is, I guess, back to like the Miami conversation, where you're trying to, I have my basketball ideal, but ultimately, do we have the guys to really execute this? And we need to win. And so I would love to see, I think it's more of a front office thing than a coach thing for me, to where give the coach options to a degree. And like, I guess I tap into the Heat fan bag real quick. Like one of the things that upset folks in like Heat Twitter and stuff like that, I was very much a, hey, is Udonis Haslem a rotation player? Not is he important? Is he important to the Heat? I always understood how important he is to the Heat. My thing was like, okay, I don't want Udonis like gone, but like if you don't trust him to give you 14 minutes a game in a pinch or something,
why taking a roster spot?
Then like I would like for you to be consultant, assistant, et cetera, and then we bring in someone that you can develop, or just another vet. And like an example I would use, like Taj Gibson's still floating around, right? And like Taj Gibson has stuck around because of the off-court stuff, similar to UD. But like what made him a little bit different in my mind, not saying that I'm right, but what made him different in my mind is like, okay, I'm also just watching Taj on a random Tuesday. He can give you 14 minutes. He'll screen, he'll be in the right place defensively, et cetera. He can move a little bit better. Like, okay, I know he's not part of the regular rotation, but he brings the off-court value. And if we need him, he can be in the rotation for 2 weeks. And you don't feel awful about it. And I think like UD got to a point to where like, okay, I don't know if I can say that in good conscience, that if there's an injury, we can just trust him to do a thing. Like he will have his moments. Like I will never forget the UD Dwight Howard thing when if it, you know what I'm saying? But even beyond the funny moments, like we have seen stretches where UD screens, hits the midi, takes a charge, comes back, sets another screen, frees guy for a pull up, gets another rebound, missed shot, offensive rebound, put back. Like he still had those moments, but it wasn't consistent enough for me to be like, okay, is this worth like not having him in the building? He should be in the building. Is this worth roster? Could we have someone else? And so I say that to say like I think there's still some slots like that in the league to where we value the off-court stuff more than the on-court stuff. And again, not inherently bad, but I think that's where you get into the room of let's add a younger piece or let's add another vet that can plug and play. And if the coaches trust that guy, then you have more room to, during the regular season, let's extend this out to 10 or 11 versus 9.
And I think, so much of what you said there, you mentioned it's front office, right? And I think it's both it's front office and it's the player development staff, right? Because you guys, my podcast partner, David Thorpe, as everyone knows, like player development is what he does, right? He helps players in the league right now get better at basketball. And he always says the playing time is oxygen for these guys. Like they're not getting better sitting on the bench. They're not going to play here. Go to the G League. Like they have to play because they need reference points. And again, if you're going to have a roster of dudes, how do you know if they're any good if they don't ever play, right? Like, and I get the idea of, especially a guy like Tibbs, sorry to bash on him again, like his thing's like, I got to grind and win every possession. It's like, dog, like it's November. Like maybe see if this dude, right, can actually help you. Yeah, he's going to fuck up and make a mistake. It's going to happen. By the way, vets fuck up all the time too, by the way, right? Like it happens. It's a game. Failure and mistakes are baked into the game, right? But can you continue to see flashes and signs? Look at a team with the Memphis Grizzlies, who last year, because of injury, were forced to play a bunch of young guys and give them a ton of minutes. Shock of all shocks, those guys are contributing players now on the roster this year, right? Like, and this year with their rookies, with Wells, and like he's getting a ton of minutes, right? And David always says, like, you play them with like superstar players, because like if you can't play with superstars like John Morant or whatever, then I know you're not any good, because superstars make the game easier,
so much easier,
right? So if you can't play with them, we already know not going to work out, right? So give these guys opportunities, and I think more and more teams are starting to do that. Indiana, I think last year we're going 11 deep, right? Part of the reason they beat the Knicks, and yes, I know the Knicks had injuries, but that game 7 was a blowout because the Pacers were just fresher, right? They had dudes coming in off the bench, like going nuts. And the Knicks could not keep up with them, right? And I think, as we talked about with the depth, I think teams are going to start realizing, okay, development, this is the next frontier, right? This is actually our job, right? Like all those assistant coaches that are on the bench doing Lord knows what. Hey, man, help these guys get good, right? Give them opportunities. Here's what I want your role to be. Screen, rebound, do the right simple things, right? And here's how you fit in playing with the best players on our team. And I think teams can figure that out. Like, I think the league will really, because I think the talent is overwhelming in this league. There's so much talent. And I don't mean necessarily super duper. Everybody knows those dudes. I'm talking about like Jake LaRavia types, right? There are plenty of guys who can play at a competent level in this league. You got to find them.
Yeah, like I think one of the like ideals or philosophies or whatever that I've always had has been like, if you are a team that is projected to be like top 2, top 3 in your conference, like I want you to spend the first 2-3 months of the regular season working in the young dude, especially since you're generally, those teams are typically going to be, we have star veterans and we are drafting between like 21 and 30 in the first round. And so like, hey, let's give you the burn. Here's just a long runway. Let's get you up to speed, let you play through mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. If we hit January and you're just not getting it, or we get, post All-Star break or whatever, you're just not getting it. Okay, let's shrink the rotation down. Let's get ready and ramp up for the playoffs, et cetera. Again, like that's obviously easier said than done, as I just have a microphone. I'm not a head coach, in which the lives of many people depend on the decision that I make. So like I understand like it's easier said than done, but like I've always felt that way.
Yeah.
I do now wonder, like, with the league having more parity in general, and with the advent of the play-in particular, to where more teams just have a chance to now make the postseason, I wonder if the margin for error to have that kind of style kind of shrinks for some of these coaches, into where like if the play-in didn't exist, maybe Tibbs is still who he is, but maybe there's like a 5 or 6% better chance that he actually extends it and gives these guys that kind of run and works to that kind of ideal, versus, hey, that's nice, I want to play the dudes that I trust, because I understand that if we are 500, we might be 9. And now you've been yelling about these minutes. Well, now we have an extra game before getting into the playoffs.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point, and I do wonder, right? Like, how do you balance all of that? And I think, like, it's all, to me, it's organizational, right? And from ownership to GM to front office to head coach, like, you got to be in lockstep, and you have to be rowing in the same direction. Looking at you, Denver, right? Like, there just has to be this kind of continuity and belief, and also sort of not worrying and have job security, right? The coaches we mentioned, Steve Kerr, ultimate job security. Eric Spoelstra, ultimate job. Like, them dudes ain't getting fired. I mean, Tibbs should also feel pretty good. I mean, you've been the best Knicks coach in I don't know how long, last 2 decades. Like, I mean, you should feel pretty comfortable too. Right? That you're not getting fired. So those coaches have the runway to be like, all right, we're going to do this because I know the GM and the ownership trust me. Like, and that's what we need to create, that kind of environment where there is actual trust there.
And I think you bouncing off of that, just with the organizational structure in general, like I think that's where, using Miami as an example again, like Spo is generally not the guy that's just going to toss 25 minutes to random young dude. But you will also see, wait a minute, it's November 18th. Wait, who is this that has played 12 straight minutes? Right. And I think the way that the Heat have used the G League as their pipeline, and the level of scheme continuity that they have had for literally, like, go back to the Tyler Johnson days. Like the level of scheme continuity they have, like they can afford to kind of double dip. We can just kind of trust our guys during the regular season. We also have these younger dudes or guys that we take flyers on to have interesting skill sets. They're playing our style already. So then if we do have an injury or like one of the bets is falling off or whatever, we can just plug and play this random young dude and still just feel very good. Like Pell Larson was closing that game. And so there is a level of like the Heat have kind of been able to double dip in that regard.
Yeah.
I think OKC's been another team.
Yes, very much so.
Shoot, like Mark Dagnall literally came up from the
G League, correct?
G League so like I do think like there are teams like that use the G, like Denver, if you use them as an example. Like, I think Coach Michael Malone, like he just wants to trust the vets anyway. Like he's Tibbs West in that regard. Like I see you in practice, I want to win. Why am I playing you if you're not giving me a reason, right? Like it also doesn't help that like Denver just got like a G League affiliate not too long ago.
Yeah,
so like you don't have that same pipeline,
right?
That kind of thing. So I think that's also a thing that probably factors into being able to kind of play both sides there.
Oh, no doubt. And yeah, look, the Heat for sure, the G League, and being able to have that continuity. Okay, so we mentioned Dagnall's got job security. This is good stuff. You mentioned Denver. Mike Malone calling out team's effort. I was like, this sounds like a man who may not be the coach of this team in the foreseeable future. Just Just saying. All right, folks, we'll be back after a brief commercial break. All right, Nekias, one of the teams that I'm super excited about, and we were high on them last year. We love Jamal Mosley as a head coach, is the Orlando Magic. Mm-hmm. Boy, this team, they can guard their MFing asses off. Like, this team can guard. Number one, I believe, in adjusted defensive rating in the league. They're just so good. Offensively, not so great. And with Paolo being hurt, that sort of hurts their offense even more. But Franz Wagner having a big bounce back season from last year. All his numbers look on pace to be career bests for sure in terms of his efficiency and his advanced numbers. And Paolo, I think, is talking about, look, I think I could get back soon. What is the ideal world offense that Orlando looks like with Wagner playing like this and Paolo ascending like how he's ascending?
Well, I think on a basic level, quick shout out to Zach Lowe, I think those two playing that well would mean like we're not a bottom 10 offense. let's just break the streak first and foremost.
We're 19th. Yes.
We did it. It's just, with the banner. It's like the Olympic meme. Yeah. Where you had the guy super celebrating with the ball and you zoom out the picture, he's like 18th or something. But no, in all seriousness, I think it allows Orlando to be multiple. It allows them, because I think Jamal Mosley, one of the interesting things, I talked about this on the pod recently, one of the interesting things about this Orlando stretch without Paolo so far is I'll check it again really quickly, but I think they're top 10 in transition frequency since Paolo's been down. And one of the things that annoyed me with the Magic last year, understood it, but annoyed me, was like, the defense is so good. You're forcing misses, you're shrinking the floor, you're forcing turnovers. Why are you towards the bottom of the league in transition?
Should be elite in transition. You're getting turnovers and blocks. Let's go, man.
It is just like, get a stop, outlet up the Paolo. Does he have an early attack to draw a foul? If not, it is half court time. I'm just like, I get it. This is a young team. You just want to establish your principles and things. You want to guarantee that you get a shot up since you don't have a traditional playmaker, etc.
Well,
so I understood it conceptually. I'm just like, dog, there's some low-hanging fruit here.
Yeah.
And so like even during this stretch, like it's top 10 in transition frequency, the transition efficiency is generally pretty low right now. But like even that, like a bad transition points per possession number is going to be higher than like even a good half court number. So it's like, okay, well, let's still push the issue. Like let's get this so we get the blend. And so then you zoom out and you get these two back. Paolo is someone that can bend the game in this world. Can get to the paint whenever he wants to, can get to the free throw line pretty much whenever he wants to. When he posts up, like I keep an eye on like decision-making speed and stuff with Paolo, but like I know he can draw two.
Yeah.
And we do have smart movers off the ball. Franz, if he's going to knock down shots, period, that's a big deal. If he's going to now knock down shots off the bounce to this degree, and I cited like he's shooting over 40% on step back threes so far this year, or around that number. But if he has that as a counter in addition to the drives, like something as simple as Paolo post up with Franz one pass away, it feels more viable. And I think in general, when you have two big wing/forward creators and you have a bunch of guys around them that are willing to do the dirty work, generally just have a good sense of how to play off the ball.
Yep.
KCP can space, also can knock down a
Suggs,
1 or 2 dribble pull up. Jalen Suggs, he is a very physical driver. Jury's still out on if he's like the good/effective one yet, or at least at a high level. But, so he can attack a tilted defense. Anthony Black can attack a tilted defense. KCP can attack a tilted defense. Gary Harris, I will never forget 17-18 Gary Harris. But like even he can, he can attack a tilted defense. Anthony Black, you go on down the line. You have bigs. Goga can make short roll reads. Mo will just put you underneath the basket. If you put two on the ball and he's able to roll free in the middle of the floor. So like you have a bunch of guys. It allows them, I think, ideally to just be multiple in that way. Yeah. We can just invert our action. We can slow things down and get good looks in the paint. And if you do send extra attention, we can attack these cracks. And we're fine. And then we can still just lean on the defense. So I think that's kind of what they want to get to.
Yeah. So you mentioned their lack of a traditional playmaker. They obviously tried Suggs at point guard, and maybe the jury's still out, or maybe we're like, no, it's not going to work. So they have a point guard problem, right? Like, what do you think is the solve there? Is it like, all right, we got to go see if we get packaged to get someone? Because right now, the idea about drafting, and because they're good now, right? So they're not going to be drafting high. And that doesn't actually matter, as we know. There's talent in all rounds, all areas of the draft. You just have to know what you're doing and develop it and whatever. But is it draft and develop? Because, again, this is a arguably a championship level defense right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you say, man, let's see if we can get somebody in here who knows how to play our way, who can guard, and who can help us get organized offensively?
I'm honestly like torn on this because I think, funny enough, like they are different because of the personnel, but I feel like Boston's kind of a blueprint for Orlando, in which we have wing creators and like we don't have a traditional point guard, but because that guard can again attack tilted defenses, but more importantly, think about what Derek White does for Jason Tatum on and off the ball. Hey, I'll screen for you. We can shift the defense and make them move that way. Like Jalen Suggs is willing to do that.
Yep.
Like Anthony Black has been used as a screener this year. Like I think it's more obviously let's improve as shooters. All those guys, Franz establish a level as a shooter. Paolo get better. Anthony Black get better. Jalen Suggs get better, which is where the beginning of the season for Jalen Suggs was super intriguing because he's just hunting these threes. And then the dip happened. I was like, well, all right, I guess we'll see where that happens.
It happens.
So like shooting needs to get to another level, but ultimately the fact that these guys are comfortable playing off of Franz and Paolo, and they're also willing to screen for them, and they'll roam around the dunker spot sometimes too. Like I think they're more likely to kind of slow play it and let those guys develop with those guys. And we use the defense as a foundation. We can create enough in the half court. We get better in transition. This is it versus let's trade some of these young prospects and get Trae Young in the building.
Well,
like for me as a Trae Young fan, I was like, oh, well, that would be interesting to me.
Yeah.
If we could package all these dudes and get Trae or get that guy. But like in general, like I think they're more, let's be big, let's be ridiculous defensively. We trust these big guys, these big forwards to develop as playmakers and creators, and we can just be multiple.
I'm with you. And I wonder how much of their defensive talent will they have to give up to get Trae? Right? Like how much will their defense then suffer when you bring him there? Because he's a sieve defensively. We know that. So you have to protect him. All right. Like, but who are we giving up around that? Right. And does the math work out? Does the rise he give us in offense make up for the dip in defense we're going to take? I don't know. All right. Like that's the question. But I mean, that's the name that's been floating around forever, right? Because he's the perfect. I mean, their offense would all of a sudden with those three. Oh my God! Forget about it. Not bottom 10. You might be top 8, right? Like with that.
it gets absurd. And like we just saw a similar like trade the defense for offense bet in Milwaukee with Dame.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like, okay. We got Giannis. We got Brook. We're not going to allow stuff at the rim. We can build a shell. We're going to be fine. Does Dame take us to another level? Now there's been health stuff, roster stuff, coaching changes, etc. More factors than that. But like right now, you can see how it may not work the way that you think, at least early on.
Yeah.
So I can understand Orlando being a little hesitant. Like, okay, why do we need to make a big move?
Correct.
When we just pushed a really good team to 7.
Correct.
And now we look better. And our two guys, Paolo again just dropped 50 before he went down. Like, okay, we don't actually need to do this. And then you zoom out and look at what the East is. It's like, wait, how many teams are over 500 right now? Like,
exactly.
I think we can I think we're all right.
and getting Trae makes you instantly an expensive roster too, right? Whereas with these guys, you don't have to. You're not expensive right now, which is huge, right? You can kind of. So the model is I know they have Shea, so it's not quite the same, but you're more like OKC, right? With all these young dudes who are really good, and then you can figure out, okay, who's the one that we need that may not kill us, right, defensively, right? So I think Orlando has some room to look at there. Another young team that I'm liking, Houston Rockets. Loved how they played last year. I thought Ime, like the biggest thing for me with young teams is, can you get them to give a shit about defense? Because young dudes, they don't care about, like they want to score points. They want to do all the fun stuff. Like that's just how it works. And Ime is just not that kind of dude. Like he doesn't tolerate that stuff at all. No. So he's gotten them to buy in. Of course, Şengün is incredible. Jabari's making a leap. Talk about Jalen Green in a minute. I'm not sure he's the long-term answer there. And they're sure because they haven't paid him yet, right? So they haven't paid him yet, have they?
Jalen Green?
Yeah.
He got the weird 2+1.
That's right. Yes, not
the player.
My point is he didn't get the rookie max. No.
Yeah, so I think with Houston, one, Ime has done a really good job of establishing that kind of defensive culture and that foundation. Like you will guard. Shout out to my guy Matt who made the point last year. Like I don't know if there was a guard or wing that didn't close over Jalen Green last year at some point. Took in the first half of the season because it's just like, hey, we got to get stops, and we don't know if he's gonna do the thing, right? And we saw a little bit of that with Jabari as well, right? Yeah. It was like, okay, it was less about the defense and more like, okay, are you making the right decisions offensively? Are you passing up shots? Are you taking bad shots? And so like there has been a level of accountability that he's come with since joining Houston. So I think that kind of permeates through both ends of the floor, right? That's why you also add in a Fred VanVleet. Like, okay, well, Jalen, we want you to become this guy.
Right.
But if you're not defending or if you're making bad decisions, here's this caretaker point guard who can also just defend like 1 through 4 in the pinch.
Yeah.
He will do all the things that you will not do.
Yeah.
And he's also making a whole lot of money, so it's not like we want to bench him anyway.
Right.
He's good. So like, okay, look, no, like we have vets that we trust, and so we want y'all to take this by the head and become the foundation. If you don't, we got options. So you need to be ready to play. And so like I do think that helped accelerate some of the things with them. Like I am really intrigued by Jalen because like you turn on Rockets games and it's just like comes off a pick and roll. It's like, okay, he's not doing like doing the auto snake and pick and roll now.
Right.
Like, okay, he is now looking to pass the ball. Okay, this is growth. Is that enough? Is that enough growth to where they want to be right now? Okay, no, not yet. Like, how much room do you give him? Right?
Yeah.
Defensively, I feel like he's been working his tail off defensively.
He's been trying for sure.
The off-ball feel is what the off-ball feel is sometimes, and so it's just like, okay, how much do I blame? How much of that is just it is who he is? So I do think we get in the trap. You know, whether you're just a fan of a team and you're just emotionally invested or if you're just bouncing around to where this person did a bad thing on defense, they don't care.
Yeah,
Right. Like sometimes it's just like you can see the wheels churning and it's just like, oh, to your point earlier, like offense, a lot of good offense, just let's make you think as a defense. Can we breed indecision?
Yes.
When you're on the floor. And so it's like watching Jalen defensively. Again, effort's been there. I think there's sometimes you talk, hey, here's a stagger. He's guarding the guy at the bottom. Is he coming up over both of these? Is he looping around and clearing out and it's just going to be a regular pin down? Is he now trying to go back door? Because I've been face guarding them the last 3 times they've done this. And I think he's still just trying to gather, okay, what am I doing? In a literal sense. Like, what am I doing? Because if I know what I'm doing, I have the tools to get this done. And that's where I like to grow from him defensively. But it's just like that thinking part and it just becoming second nature. Especially since Houston has also thrown in, well, Şengün's not guarding the big tonight. He's actually guarding his right. We got Jabari on the center. And so now, okay, what would just be a traditional 1 through 4 switch? Wait a minute, am I switching this with Şengün or am I fighting over? Am I fighting over or am I fighting under? And so like he's working through all of that. And so like even with him trying, it doesn't always end up as like a great possession. And then if he's not making shots on the other end, that's the calling guard. It's easy to kind of feel a little weird about where Jalen Green is. So I do kind of feel for him in that regard.
Yeah, look, that is the defensive side of the floor of the ball is where he needs to really lock in on his studying and his habits and his like that's the professional part about working and studying and like paying attention to detail that helps you like all the great players in this league do. Like this is not happenstance that guys are elite. Sometimes it's just like they're raw tools, but like raw tools enough ain't it. Like you have to know what you are doing and be drilled repeatedly in it. And do you have the commitment to want to, right? Like we mentioned the efforts there. He's giving effort, right? Okay, but is the effort matching your mental preparation and your study, right? You mentioned, okay, if Şengün's on the wing, am I switching or am I going over? Like you've got to know that, right? You've got to know what am I doing here on this assignment, right? And that's reps. That's also your study, right? Are you doing that? I don't know, so I can't say. But it'll be interesting to see because I think Houston is really they're turning a corner. They were looking good last year, 13-6 right now, something like that, 13-7, like game back, I think, of OKC. So they're going to be fighting for a top 6 seed, top 6 spot this year for sure. And that's what a huge win for them. And kudos to Ime, by the way, for just bringing in, as you mentioned, guys, that culture of accountability. And that's the biggest thing with these guys. I want to talk about a couple teams. We mentioned Trey before, the Hawks. They're to me in this odd spot, which is we're not awful, but we're not good either, right? And that's the worst place to be in the NBA. Like you're either got to be like we're a legit playoff team and like we're trying to do stuff, like and if we make a move or whatever, we're a piece away from contending, or no, we're trying to build and develop young guys, but you can't because you have Trey Young on your roster making $50 million a year or whatever he's making. I just don't know what is going on in Atlanta. So if you were the GM of Atlanta, Nekias Duncan, what would your short-term and long-term plans be?
I think for me, like I would at least want to get younger in the front court. Like, I think Clint has generally just been fine this year. Like, I don't think it's been a negative. Like, he's helped them. And there is just a level of size that he provides that Onyeka doesn't, even if I feel like Onyeka's overall a better player right now.
I do think so.
But I do think, to your point, I would like to pick a direction. And I think so I want Trey. Like, we already decided we're keeping Trey versus keeping DeJounte. And boy, has that kind of worked out with what. Good gracious. Dyson Daniels might steal my microphone by the time the segment's over. So that seems like a hit. And like you get Zachary Ricochet in the draft.
Yeah.
So like they're building out
some moments.
Yeah. So like they're building out this stable of wings and forwards. Jalen Johnson, I love Jalen Johnson. Love him coming out of the draft. Which really feels good for me because I'm just not a draft guy. So it's just like, hey, wait, is that 6'10", can dribble and can make passes? I think I like that guy. That's cool. So that's worked out. But I think I trend younger in the front court. Like, let's get Onyeka and Jalen together. Like, let's see what this looks like. And if it works, we got a lot of athleticism. We got a lot of versatility. We also have Trae Young, who's just walking 20 and 10 at minimum. Especially when he's right. He hasn't hit shots to the same degree to start the year. I would imagine that's going to tick up, and now we get a higher ceiling moving forward. But like, I would just kind of trend. Let's move Onyeka. I mean, let's move Clint.
Right, younger.
Bogdanovich is where I get a little hazy because he's still very good when he's healthy, but he just hasn't been healthy, and so he's obviously rounding the form right now. But like, okay, can I turn these two guys into either a veteran that fits more of like the Trey age line? Maybe not Zachary. That's too young. But like, can I find like a 26, 28, 29 guy for these two? Package, if we package these guys together and help. If not, like, can we get younger? Because like, I think you just commit to Trey. Yeah. Because ultimately, like, he's really freaking good and offense onto himself. But beyond that, even if you do want to trade him, he is such a particular talent. It's not like if you get the official Shams tweet, Trae Young is available for trade, you're immediately going to see, 4 teams are willing to offer at least 4 first-round picks, 2 swaps, and young elite blue chip, right? Like, it's going to be a limited market. So, like, let's build this out around Trey. Like, I think they already started making moves around that. Okay, let's get all of these wings in the room. So I think they're already kind of doing it. I would just lean into that. Like, I'm not trading Trey unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And the Dyson Daniels thing. I mean, what a find. And the team we're gonna talk about next. But he's happy he's not there. The New Orleans Pelicans. Look, I don't know how many times we can say, well, it's all about Zion getting healthy, and like, look, that may just never be a thing. I don't know. It just may, and if that is in fact the case, yikes. Because I just, you got CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy III. I mean, like, Herb Jones. Like, what are you?
They're a team with a roster of guys that I like, but I'm not sure how they fit together on the super high end.
Correct.
And more importantly to that, I don't know how long I'm going to have them to really see what it can be. Because like, you look even over the past couple of years, it's like a whole bunch of injuries, etc. We are starting JB and we are still a top 10 defense. Like, Herb Jones has been incredible. Like, you got CJ on one end, you got JB on the other end, and you got Herb in the middle, and like, you carved out 2 straight top 10 defense. Like, obviously there's something that can be built there.
Right.
And like, the best version of Zion is an offense onto himself. He's going to get to the line, he's going to get to the line. You can run inverted things with him, etc. Brandon Ingram, especially, like, this year, more threes. The playmaking has perked up since he's been in New Orleans. Like, you have stuff there. I love Trey Murphy. Like, you have stuff there, but like, it's so reductive, but it's about the stars. It's just about the stars. If Zion isn't going to be there, you don't have the sun.
Correct. Don't matter what the other planets are doing. No sun to revolve around.
You just don't have that. And like, you've seen elements of that being the case this year because Brandon Ingram, at least up until recently, was just the most blitz player in the NBA for a second stretch. It's like, oh, well, y'all ain't got Zion. You're also missing a whole bunch of other people, so that also drives that number. But it's like, okay, well, fine. We're just going to trap Brandon Ingram, not let him get comfortable. Let's see what you other dudes do. It's like, and like, it'd be one thing to work through that if they were in the East. It's another thing to where we have injuries. There are like 11 teams over 500. It's just like, well, darn. Like, how do we even fight back now when we do get Zion?
They are 4-14. 10 games under 500.
Yeah, it's just like, Like the Spurs in the play-in, I don't even know if they stay there.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, we're like 4 or 5 games behind them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like I just feel for them.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the players, like they, like you can quibble out some of the decisions that were made during this build, but like ultimately they did. Like we got the #1 pick, we added talent, we added a really good veteran, we've made a playoff appearance. I think we nailed the coach. I think Willie Green's a really good coach.
I do think he's good.
But like, so we've done all these things. We've hit like, outside of lottery or late lottery, whatever the Trey Murphy pick was. Like we've done a whole lot of the good things that we want, and because of health, it hasn't mattered in the grand scheme of things. And now, like, you have the Hoop Collective bringing up the Zion contract again and it being potentially waivable. And it's like, again, I don't think they do that, but it's just like the fact that this is the discussion point instead of Zion going for an all NBA.
I mean,
like it just stinks.
Nekias, we have the evidence so far suggests this young man will not reach his basketball potential. That's what the evidence suggests so far. That's not good, right? Because you have a lot of money tied up into this dude, right? Like he is your son, and he's not even on the floor. Forget about playing like that. He's not even on the floor. And if you can't have that, because again, to your point, he's an offensive. When he plays, you're like, oh, now we can. Because remember, the thought was when they made the playoff appearance, man, all you gotta do is put a healthy Zion in there. And, oh man, this team is gonna. Oh, that's a big if and a big question mark that I have no idea. And you mentioned you think Willie Green's a good coach, as do I. Ain't none of that going to matter now because if they have another crap season, guess who's not going to have a job going forward?
And it just stinks for him. And like to make it even more difficult, like it helps that they do have like outside picks in the chamber. But like what makes it more difficult is like, okay, fine, this build isn't going to work. Zion isn't going to be healthy. Let's pivot. Let's trade Zion. Let's trade Brandon Ingram. Well, you didn't give Brandon Ingram the extension. And even BI, as he's made strides as a playmaker, he's taking more threes. Like he's not the cleanest fit to toss into another ecosystem.
Yep.
And if you're trading Zion,
pennies on the dollar.
Like, what are you getting for Zion? Like, we are literally having this discussion because Zion hasn't been healthy. Otherwise, he would be the guy that could warrant the kind of package that gets you out of this. But ultimately, if he's healthy enough and he's that guy can warrant the kind of value, we're in a better spot. Like we don't have to have this conversation to begin with.
Correct.
So it's just a really tough place to be in.
This is the NBA, and it's why I always, fans are always like, oh, just do this, just do that. I'm like, there are so many factors involved in actually being good. The first and most important factor is your players got to be healthy and available. If they ain't, what are we even talking about? Like, we got nothing. Speaking of, and I asked you this question on Blue Sky the other day, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
Look, this team thought when they got Paul George, they were going to be a top 4 seed and, make an NBA championship run, right? Like, it's highly unlikely they're a top 4 seed. Highly unlikely. And right now, they're only 5 games back of the top 6, but they have to leapfrog 9 teams to get there.
Yeah.
Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they don't. What we need to see happen is Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid actually get on the court and spend some time together. These are all super elite players when they are healthy, and I love Maxey. Paul George gets a lot of shit, but this is one of the great two-way players we have in the history of this game. He's so good, and we know what Joel Embiid is. And those guys are high IQ guys, but they need time to play. Like, they need to learn each other, their movements, who gets the ball where, all the things that like just needs, because there's no practice in the NBA, people. So they got to get on the court and play. I don't know when they're getting on the court to play any games this season. And the idea is, okay, well, it's always next year. It's always the first year to kind of get accustomed. Okay, so you're making the bet that next year, a year older, Embiid and Paul George are going to magically be healthy a year from now. I have no evidence to suggest that.
Yeah, like Philly, another tough team. Like, you already have, I guess, like the Embiid and by proxy, like Kawhi, like the Olympic conversation and the decisions there. It just all felt kind of, wait, we're doing what now? Like,
so you were on the side of, what are you guys doing? I don't want you playing the Olympics.
Yeah, like for me, like I just never got the Kawhi thing.
Well, I mean, yes.
Like obviously good enough, and ultimately with the status that he has, how good he is, etc. Like if that guy says I want to play, then yeah, if you're the Team USA brass, you do that. But like I guess for Kawhi specifically, and more in Clippers brass by proxy, like allow was always like a weird word when you're talking about adults and stuff like that. But it's just like no. Like we didn't have you for the postseason. Like I want you to get healthy. Like, obviously, we want you to get healthy for us so we can make a regular season run. But, like, all of your seasons are ending early. Like, I just want to see you. And, like, I want to see you quality of life beyond this. Because this does just feel, I'm not a doctor. Like, this does just feel like long-term degenerative, whatever.
He
like,
has a chronic injury and it will not improve until the day he stops playing NBA basketball. That's just what that is. And I'm not the one to tell him to not play NBA basketball anymore. That has to be his decision. So you are where you are with that.
Yeah, so it's just like, no, like, just quality of life. For me, it's like, no, I don't think you need to do that. And even with Joel Embiid, like all the things that he played through in the Knicks series, like obviously the Team USA needed that size during the gold medal march, but like, get healthy, ramp up. You know what I'm saying? Like let's get this right. And so now you zoom in, and we're on this maintenance plan with Embiid, which again I don't think that's inherently a bad decision. That's fine. You're on the maintenance plan. This is taking longer than expected. The conversation around it's weird. Nick Nurse is obviously annoyed by all of this, as you're quickly reminded, oh yeah, he did just kind of have to do this with Kawhi. And so like he's annoyed by this visibly. The Sixers get fined.
Yeah, they got fined. Embiid's teammates are annoyed.
It's just like, okay, well, all this is happening. We finally get Embiid back, and it is very clear he is not ready to be back yet. And so then he's back out, and it's like, okay, well, cool, he's coming back. And then we get dealing with swelling. He's out these next 2 games.
That not
and
good.
It's just like, what are we supposed to do with any of this? And even with Paul George, like didn't start the season. It's been kind of a slow build up for him. Now he's back out, and it's, hey, I think I'm gonna play next week. I'm just like, I don't know what you do with that. Shout out Jarod McCain.
Rookie of the year, as he said. I am rookie. Shout out to you, Jarod. Listen, this is one of the unintended consequences and potentially benefits of unintended benefit of guys being out. Jarod McCain, you getting all the runway, baby. Keep shooting. Like, let's see what you can do. Look, I'm not saying the season's over for Philly, but what I am saying is, and Daryl's got to be having serious internal conversations like, what are we doing here? Because can anybody say with any conviction how many games Joel Embiid has left in his body?
No.
And so with that said, and the amount of money I owe this man, now I get it. Pennies on the dollar. He's injured. He'll be like, but because Maxey, you're not gonna trade Maxey. That's your future. That dude's young and all NBA like caliber. Like Paul George, I guess you can get something back for him. You can't trade him for, till when? December 15th or whatever, since you just got him. So, I don't see this ending well in Philly. It's not trending in that direction. And yeah, I don't know what they do because they made the bet to go all in, right? So they're in. All the chips are in. Well, don't matter when you can't even play. You can't even play the hand. Just guys aren't even here.
Yeah, like I think to your point, like you generally have like these, big three concoctions or whatever, and it's like, hey, let's use year one to gel, let's see if we can make a run. But ultimately, we now get to year two, we can now hit free agency, see what we need, et cetera, et cetera. It was a little bit different for Philly because in theory, obviously you give Maxey his extension, you bring Paul George in, you have Joel Embiid, you have your point, you have your wing, you have your big, like it's a more natural flow of building out a big three.
For sure.
And so with some of the free agency moves you make, like you're making some gambles in the forward room, Caleb Martin, you bring in Yabusele, et cetera. But it's just like bring back Kelly Oubre, you got to like in theory, like they were, if healthy, they were set up for like the rare year one success. Because you have MVP, again, you just have like your 10 poles, you have your guard, you have your wing, you have your big. And so it's been easier to foresee them having their top two seed in the East in year one. And then if they're healthy for the postseason, they can beat anybody. To your point, if you're not going to get the year one success, oh boy, what does Embiid look like? What does it look like next year with Embiid and Paul George in particular? So it's
and as you mentioned, like with Zion, it starts with if Embiid, it does not matter what any of this other stuff is. None of it matters. And again, That is the biggest question mark. Nobody can definitively say what this guy has left and how many games we can count on for this person.
Yeah, and I want to see it. He's Hall of Fame good.
Oh my God! I mean, a man that big should not be able to do the things he does on a basketball court. It should not be physically possible. He's so skilled and so good.
He was winning MVP running away last year. If he stays healthy.
Oh yeah.
Had that run and then got better, and it just stinks as a basketball fan, man. I hate injuries.
And that's something we harp on all the time here at True Hoop is that this calendar is unforgiving to these players, right? 82 game season is a nightmare, right? Mm-hmm. Add on top of that, any kind of summer basketball they play, international ball, that doesn't help, right? Because that cuts off your off season and your rest. It's just, this is not conducive for any kind, which is what we started our show talking about, which is, hey man, teams better figure out, we got 15 roster spots. No, we are developing 15 guys who can actually play basketball in the NBA. Because the 82 game schedule sadly ain't going anywhere. It is what it is. So fine. If that's the deal, we got to work within the parameters that we are dealt, the hand that we're given. And smart teams who want to preserve their players are going to do that. And listen, this league is full of dumb teams, and it always will be. They're going to keep doing stupid things, and they're going to be where they are. All right, Nekias, it is, I was going to say Thursday. It's not Thursday. It's Wednesday, but it is our tradition on our second show of the week that we do top 5 teams in the NBA right now. So who is on your 5 line?
Ooh, I had a time trying to put this together. Because I'm just like heading into it like, all right, well, I know who in some order, my 3, like Boston's going to be in there, Cleveland's going to be in there, OKC's going to be in there. All right, boom. Cool. I can pull about the order. Fine. Right. And recent skid for Golden State, but like they've still been very good. And so like I don't want to overreact to them losing their last 2. Right. The defense has been absurd. Like they've been dicing teams up in the half court. So like I probably still have Golden State probably like 4. And then there's just this hodgepodge of teams to where on any given day, like depending on what the parameters are, because it's just like Phoenix just got their full complement bat, and boy, do they look good.
Who knew that Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal make a difference?
It's just like, hey, like the defense is really good, and these 3 guys are playing well. You lose KD and Beal, etc. So like they slide, but like Phoenix has been really good this year. Ryan Dunn's been a revelation.
They're 9-1 when Durant plays.
So it's like I can make the case for Phoenix. We talked about Houston, who pretty much a stone's throw away from being top 10 in offense and defense for glass. Like they're 11th in offense despite being a bottom 10 half court offense right now. Like nobody outside of like Dylan Brooks is shooting well. And they're still almost a top 10 offense overall because of what they've done.
Itself is an oxymoron. Nobody outside of Dylan Brooks. I'm sorry, what?
So it's just like, well, there's obvious offensive upside for Houston. And the defense is ironclad. Like I made the case for them. Orlando, talked about them. Offense is what it is. They don't have Paolo right now. Good Lord.
What you gotta make a decision, Nekias. Pick one.
Oh, man.
Pick one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pick one. I will just say very quickly, like, I do see you, Memphis, dealing with all these injuries. They've been flirting around top 10 in offensive defense. I think they are just top 10.
They're coming. They're coming.
And so, I guess I will lean Houston right now.
Yeah.
But look at Orlando, Phoenix, Memphis. It's very much in flux. So like that's where I go.
See, this is you and I and David are in mind meld. Rockets number 5. That's on my 5 line right now. Look, I said what I said about Phoenix. Phoenix was in my top 5 before the KD Beal injuries, right? But they're right there. Memphis, they're coming. Like they're getting healthy. They're awesome. Ja looked great the other night. Jaren Jackson Jr. playing really well. I mentioned the young players. My 4 line is the Golden State Warriors, of course, playing well despite their recent skid. OKC Thunder, no Chet, and still playing well. They're one of the few teams who can win the conference and also still make a big swing and bring somebody else in because they have so much capital and cap space and yada, 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 yada. Of course, Celtics number 2 and Cavs, the fun Cleveland Cavaliers who are playing like, hey, man, this is all fun for us.
They've been they've lost once.
Yeah. I think I said a couple weeks ago, they may not lose 5 games before Christmas. Like, it's possible. Like,
like they have been incredible, which if I can hijack the pod for like 40 seconds,
go.
I need people to put respect on the name of Ty Jerome because he has just been one of, if not the best backup guard in the NBA this season. I think the playmaking's been important. The floater has certainly been important. He's working hard defensively. Like, he's just been a real stabilizing force. And, like, the passing itself is just incredible. He would just slip some nonsense in there. I think he's been a big driver of their success, especially when Donovan or Darius goes in there. So I just want to shout out Ty Jerome once again. Just doing it all.
Ty Jerome on pace to have his best season in terms of efficiency and impact on winning. Estimated plus minus. Like, he is just, that's a case in player development, right? Like, you need time. Not everybody is Wemby or LeBron that day one they come in the league, they're plus positives and like, oh, like, it takes time. This game is fucking hard and this league is hard. Like, but you got to give these players time to get good, right? Like, give up on them too early at your own peril. Nekias, this was a pleasure. Tell the people where they can find you.
Well, one, thank you for having me. This was a blast. You can find me, I guess, still technically on Twitter at Nekias NBA, but that's more so a pod promo at this point because, good God, what has happened to that app? That's another podcast. Find me more actively on Blue Skies, Nekias NBA. Subscribe to the Dunker Spot if you haven't already. We're on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. We go twice a week. The first episode of each week is on formerly the JJ Reddit YouTube channel, now the Young Man of the Three YouTube channel. So if you want plays spliced in, if you want to see my live reaction to Steve doing his Kendrick rendition in the intro of that pod, but we have plays spliced in. We got graphics, kind of complement what we're saying on the pod there. So, like, if you want that element, check us out every Tuesday on the YouTube channel, but otherwise audio every Tuesday and Friday, sometimes Thursday. So
love it. Thank you so much, Nekias. Everybody, hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. If you're celebrating, be safe, spend some time with family or whatever it is you're doing, and we will be back next week. Take care.